The diplomatic hall of the Drakmor flagship gleamed with bioluminescent panels, casting Prince Kael's silvered scales in an ethereal glow. He stood at the center of the chamber, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of supreme authority, addressing the delegation from Earth with barely concealed disdain. "Your species seeks entry into the Galactic Concordat," Prince Kael announced, his voice resonating through the translators worn by every human present. "But you must first prove you understand hierarchy, respect, submission." Sergeant Mira Voss stood among her fellow humans, her military posture relaxed but alert. She'd seen 100 pompous officials across a dozen worlds during humanity's first decade of interstellar contact. Prince Kael was just another name on that long list. What concerned her more were the 4 juvenile Drakmor positioned behind the prince, the so-called cubs that served as both guards and students to the royal family. Each cub stood nearly 8 feet tall, their obsidian scales still soft with youth, their triple-jointed limbs coiled with predatory grace. Their eyes, 6 per head, tracked every movement in the room with the hungry focus of apex hunters. The Drakmor were carnivores, top of the food chain on 17 conquered worlds. These cubs had been raised on stories of dominance and the natural order of strong consuming weak. "To demonstrate your understanding," Prince Kael continued, his main hand gesturing toward the cubs, "you will show deference to my personal guard. Kneel before them, show them that humans know their place beneath the Drakmor." The human delegation shifted uncomfortably. Ambassador Chen, the mission's diplomatic lead, opened her mouth to offer a carefully worded refusal, but Mira stepped forward first. "With respect, Prince Kael," Mira said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade through silk. "Humans don't kneel, not to anyone, not even to each other." The prince's scales rippled with colors indicating amusement mixed with irritation, purple bleeding into crimson. "Then you reject entry to the Concordat? I'm suggesting an alternative." Mira walked forward past the line of diplomats, ignoring Ambassador Chen's whispered warning. "Let me demonstrate what humans do offer. Partnership, not submission." Prince Kael's laugh was a rattling sound that echoed off the metallic walls. "Partnership? With prey species?" He turned to his cubs, switching to the Drakmor tongue. The translator in Mira's ear rendered his words. "See, young ones? Even the weakest creatures think themselves mighty. Show them what predators do to such arrogance." The 4 cubs moved forward as one, their movements fluid and synchronized. They surrounded Mira in a loose semicircle, heads lowered, nostrils flaring as they sampled her scent. The largest cub, its scales bearing the distinctive crimson markings of a hunting leader, tilted its head and spoke in broken standard. Small, soft skin, no claws. "No scales." The cub's 6 eyes narrowed. "Is prey?" Mira met the cub's gaze without flinching. She'd trained in low-gravity combat, survived 3 colonial insurgencies, and once talked down a hostile AI during the Mars uprising. Teenage predator aliens didn't make her top 10 list of threatening encounters. "I'm Sergeant Mira Voss," she said calmly, "and no, I'm not prey." "Want to know why?" The cubs exchanged glances, confusion rippling across their juvenile features. The lead cub looked back at Prince Kael, who waved a dismissive hand. "Humor the creature. Let it entertain us before we conclude this farce." Mira slowly reached into her uniform pocket. Every weapon scanner in the room had already cleared her. She carried nothing that could harm the Drakmor. What she withdrew was a small sealed container. She opened it and the smell hit the room like a physical force. Every cub recoiled, their nostrils flaring, their scales shifting to colors indicating shock and wariness. Even Prince Kael took a step backward. "This," Mira said, holding up a small, shriveled red object, "is called a ghost pepper, one of thousands of capsicum variants humans cultivated over millennia. We bred plants to be more painful to eat. Then we ate them anyway. For fun," the lead cub hissed. "Poison? To you, probably. To humans, just spicy." Mira popped the pepper into her mouth and chewed deliberately. Her eyes watered. Ghost peppers were no joke even for humans, but she kept her expression neutral. She swallowed, then smiled. "We evolved as persistence hunters. We didn't need claws or scales or venom. We just needed to be too stubborn to quit." She took a step toward the cubs. They didn't retreat, but their posture shifted from predatory to cautious. Humans chased prey for days until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. We survived in every environment on our planet. from frozen tundra to burning deserts. We domesticated wolves into dogs, turned the deadliest predators into our companions. We went to space in primitive rockets that killed some of us, and we kept going anyway. Mira locked eyes with each cub in turn. We don't kneel because we learned a long time ago that survival isn't about being the strongest. It's about being the most adaptable, the most persistent, the most willing to do whatever it takes. The lead cub made a low rumbling sound, its scales flickering through colors the translator couldn't interpret. Finally it spoke, not prey, not predator. The cub's 6 eyes studied Mira with new understanding. Something else. Partners, Mira said firmly. If you'll have us. Prince Kale's scales flashed angry crimson. Enough! Cubs, I command you to— No. The lead cub interrupted, its voice strengthening. It turned to face the prince, and the other 3 cubs moved to flank it. Human shows strength. Different strength. Not food. The cub looked back at Mira. Teacher? The word hung in the air like a challenge. In Drakmore culture, cubs only called someone teacher if they acknowledged that being is worthy of respect and learning from. It was a title that superseded even royal commands. Prince Kale's scales went pale with shock. You dare, we dare, the lead cub said, and its siblings rumbled agreement. Human teaches us new hunting, new thinking. This is the way of growth the ancestors speak of. Mira allowed herself a small smile. She'd read the cultural briefings thoroughly. The way of growth was sacred to the Drakmore, the principle that predators must evolve or die. By framing her as a teacher offering new perspective, the cubs had invoked a religious principle that even a crown prince couldn't override without losing face. Ambassador Chen stepped forward, reading the room perfectly. Prince Kale, perhaps we can discuss the terms of humanity's concordant membership while Sergeant Voss shares some of our survival techniques with your promising students? The prince's scales cycled through a dozen colors before settling on a grudging gold, acceptance mixed with irritation. Very well. But know this, humans, you have made an impression today. Whether that serves you well or poorly remains to be seen. As the diplomats moved to the negotiating tables, the lead cub approached Mira with something almost like reverence. Sergeant Mira Voss, you teach us to be strong like humans? Mira nodded, extending her hand in the human gesture of greeting. The cub studied her hand for a moment, then carefully wrapped one massive claw around it, mimicking the gesture with surprising gentleness. I'll teach you, Mira said. But first lesson, strength isn't about making others kneel. It's about standing together. The cub's scales rippled with colors of contemplation, and Mira knew that humanity had just made its first real friend among the stars, not through submission or dominance, but through something the galaxy had apparently forgotten: mutual respect between equals. Behind them, Prince Kale watched with narrowed eyes, realizing too late that his arrogance had given humanity exactly what they needed: not entry to the Concordat as supplicants, but as teachers to the next generation of one of the galaxy's most powerful species. Sometimes, Mira thought with satisfaction, the best way to win wasn't to fight at all. It was to change the question entirely,